Hello, my name's John Lecoq, and I've been putting out tactical simulations for some time on the internet. And I thought before starting on tactical simulations, I would give a little pep talk and find out where you are. Everyone likes to operate in their comfort zone. Doctors like to operate in operating rooms, not at a crash scene. Firefighters like to be prepared for what other people consider emergencies. We bring our knowledge, skills, abilities, and tools to the scene to ensure success. Firefighters initially learn how to perform tasks involving the various problems encountered on the emergency scene through a formal entry-level program. See a problem, solve a problem. One-on-one or two-on-one, we get the job done. What is the unknown or an emergency to others is well within our comfort zone because of advanced preparation. Acquiring knowledge, practicing the skills involved in applying the knowledge, and ultimately having the ability to recognize a problem and successfully implement a solution in the field is what separates firefighters from others. The same system of training is sometimes lacking for those wishing to lead and resolve problems requiring more than a couple of tasks. So I ask you again, what is your comfort level? Are you in the zone when placed in front of a burning building? Do you like to be given a task and then the freedom to accomplish the task using your own training and experience? Can you make a decision without complete information? Are you comfortable telling the crew on the nozzle what to do? Do you have a mental checklist or a gut instinct based on doing it before? Would you go in or stay out? What about this scenario? Quite a bit of fire. Would you run to take the nozzle or take control of the scene operations? Your comfort level is based on your education and experience. Even the best officers, when confronted with something they haven't seen before, may want to go back to their comfort zone. I know, I have. Without a checklist or system when faced with a newer, larger problem, you may flounder outside of your comfort zone. Through the years, the fire service has taught several systems to aid the officer in the field to make the best decisions possible in situations they have never seen before. Layman had an acronym called Coal was Wealth. The National Fire Academy had Managing Company Tactical Objectives with the acronym STOP and See. Blue Card has SHOP As. All provide a framework when dealing with the initial emergency scene. The best system is a combination of experience, education, where your decisions are recognition based. You've seen it before, you've practiced it before, and you have a decision matrix and plan ready made inside your head. That's what these tactical simulations are for. So, command structure. As an acting officer or seasoned battalion chief, are you in your comfort zone, setting up and managing an initial deployment? 35 years ago, a grizzled chief officer approached me on the scene of my first fire involving hazardous chemicals and gave me some good advice, possibly because I needed it. Son, he said, I'm going to tell you two things and it will make the rest of your career a whole lot easier. Number one, think before you key your mic. Nobody knows if you are here 10 seconds before you start talking, and the time you take to think will make you sound smarter. That sure was nice of him. Number two, remember these three questions and answer them when you talk. What do you got? What are you doing? What do you need? I've read thousands of pages on managing incidents, initial size-ups, radio reports, command structure, benchmarking, resource management, communications, demobilization, public relations, safety. But in the end, it all boiled down to answering the same three questions. What about this command structure? Are you comfortable in this incident? Is it a 2-alarm, 3-alarm? How many of these have you been on? How many has your department been on? How many have you practiced? Can you run this incident? Can you do any of the assignments within here? It's interesting how many of us think we are prepared. We've studied and practiced individually until we know just how we are going to handle it. And then a big incident hits. A famous general once said, "No plan survives initial contact with the enemy." The same is true for us. We've all heard the expression, a good fireman is one that overcomes mistakes, or when a plan doesn't work, overcomes. The same is true for the incident commander. Now, a little off subject here, but something to consider. Communications is cited every time we experience problems on the emergency scene. Training using one-way communication, expecting it to translate to the emergency scene, is a recipe for disaster. So make sure you're not the only one in your comfort zone. Do the tactical simulations, go ahead and practice alone, but ultimately before applying it, make sure you're working with the people that you're going to be working with on the emergency scene. Now, most incident commanders are pretty comfortable with the 2 or 3 alarm fire. What about this one? Are you comfortable as part of an incident involving resources throughout your county, maybe even your state? As an acting officer, company officer, battalion chief, or even chief officer, you need to know where you fit into the organizational structure. Have you been part of a strike team? Have you led a strike team? The chances of the big one happening are extremely rare and yet can be career defining. Having only the outline provided by ICS 100 through 400 is a poor substitute for an emergency response plan for major incidents. Know your emergency response plan, your organization response plans. And if you don't have one, think about developing them for the emergencies you may have in your area. How comfortable is your agency in knowing what they can and cannot provide during large-scale Type 3 or 4 events? Here's a little bit bigger structure. Would you be comfortable if you had an emergency activation of your regional emergency response plan? Are you familiar with the role of the company officer or battalion chief in just such an event? What emergency support functions is your agency responsible for? What the heck are ESFs? A good rule of thumb for staying in your comfort zone is to be prepared and to take on the responsibilities of the rank above the one you are trying to reach. In a large emergency, that is usually what happens. You're usually working 2 ranks above where you are. Good example for me, and good example, the 2001 Nisqually earthquake occurred around 11 on February 28, 2001. It was an earthquake with a 6.8 magnitude. The epicenter was in the southern Puget Sound region, northeast of Olympia. My department's a little bit north of Olympia. The shock was felt in Oregon, Canada, Washington, Idaho, and I had the good fortune of being the acting battalion chief that shift. Within 3 minutes, our department received 100 calls for service. I was dispatched to a pipeline leak, a structure fire, and a zone response into Seattle. Was I out of my comfort zone? Definitely. Did I have an outline of a plan to follow? Yes. The crews were ordered to perform surveys. Advanced life support was single response only. We activated the Emergency Operations Center, and we set up secondary dispatch for the low frequency, low risk calls. Did it go smoothly? No. Did crews know what was expected of them? Yes. So sometimes you have to realize you are not dealing with a situation that you can resolve in a few hours. You have to develop the organization. The recovery and mitigation efforts from this incident continued for years. And that wasn't even the big one. As you can see, the incident commander is at the bottom of the organization structure here. This is the big one, an activation on a national level. Now, I'm going to give you some advice on this one and actually a strategy to follow if this ever happens to you. It's called the BOOT strategy, BOOT, and it's very, very simple. It's be out of town. Okay, so sometimes I have a bad sense of humor. Basically, I never want you to get comfortable. Always know you have more to learn. We can only do what we are trained and equipped to do. With that, we'll start working on incidents we can control. Type 5 incidents, those your local jurisdiction handle. What do you got? What are you doing? What do you need? May take some time, but be safe. And last, probably want to know what this guy looks like that's talking to you. This is me from back in my training officer days, 2007 or so. So good luck and keep training.